Nobody's gonna know.
They're gonna know.
Nobody's gonna know.
They're absolutely going to know.
How are they gonna
Dude,
know?
it's not that hard to tell that my voice is completely messed up. That is because less than 24 hours ago, I couldn't even open my mouth. So yesterday, I ended up getting surgery on my throat, and somehow today I am talking. And not to mention that, this week has been a massive week for video games, including probably one of the, if not the biggest trailer for a video game ever to come out with GTA 6. So needless to say, it's been a little bit of a wild week. Now, because of the whole surgery thing yesterday, Slick has like well less than 24 hours to edit this video, so hit that like button for him, and you know, maybe subscribe, turn notifications on for the throat goat over here. I don't know why I said that. But on top of that, this week we have more Battlefield information because of what we know about GTA. We have a new, well, kind of new Gears of War. We have a ton of reveals and a huge game coming out this week. But hey, that's why you follow the channel. Welcome to the Weekly Reload. Gentlemen, this is the Weekly Reload, where every single Sunday we dive in and break down all of the gaming news, the biggest news, sometimes the smallest news that has happened in a given week, with a little bit of a focus on first-person shooters. But this week was all about reveals. So many reveals going on everywhere, including a new console that you may be surprised about. But let's dive into the big one, because Tuesday morning I woke up and my throat, that's when everything started. But of course, when that started, literally that morning on a random Tuesday, Rockstar Games dropped this.
What you doing up there?
I'm just fixing some leaks.
Seriously, dude, you got some time on your hands. I got some properties with paying tenants.
Oh, that's why you came by?
Just go get me my checks.
See you, Brian. Love you, Jason.
Now sitting over 100 million views, this trailer is absolutely massive. Now, later down the line, we found out some other things. First of all, this trailer is using both gameplay and cutscenes, which means about 50% of this is actually somehow not cutscenes but gameplay from GTA 6, which absolutely blows my mind. Now, you may remember earlier that week, last week, we got a delay for GTA 6 until May 26, 2026, which sent Take-Two's stock down for a nosedive. Well, this trailer almost made that stock completely recover altogether, leaving Take-Two's stock still up 10% as a whole over the last 30 days. So needless to say, this is one of the biggest trailers of all time, and probably also one of the biggest successes for a trailer for a company's stock price as well. Now, because GTA finally revealed its release date, this is freeing up companies to show off when they are going to be revealing and releasing their games as well. And with PAX happening this week, we got more and more of that. But one that had nothing to do with PAX, one that has to do with the reveal for GTA 6, is Battlefield. So because Battlefield basically announced when they started talking about Battlefield that they were going to base their release date around when GTA 6 was coming out, they had an investor call this week, and in their investor call, they simply stated, well, we have a better idea of when this is going to be releasing, which makes us all think probably around October, November this fall, which is going to be directly competing with the next Call of Duty game, which we will talk about in a minute. Now, because of this, they also put out a new kind of blog post on Twitter to all of the players, revealing what they have done in their last few Battlefield Labs playtests, also revealing that the next few playtests are going to be open for a wider margin of players. So if you signed up for Battlefield Labs, be sure to be checking your email, which also means there's going to be more and more leaks coming out about this game. Now, they also showed off some images from one of the new maps that is going to be in the new Battlefield or Battlefield 6 called Capstone. It is the one that got leaked last week or 2 weeks ago, and it is the one up in the snowy mountains, I believe in Tajikistan or Tajikistan or one of the stands. But basically, they have said over the past couple of months what they have been working on is establishing a solid foundation for smooth, low latency, and high performance gunplay, finding the right balance in movement speed for functionality such as crouch sprint, combat rolling, and vaulting as a part of combat pacing, and then using destruction to create fun and lasting tactical gameplay across rounds and experiences. And that's kind of the biggest one, because we now know that rubble from explosions stays there, changing the format and area of the map. Based off of all of this, new playtests should be coming soon, and right around the corner, potentially this fall, we will be playing a new Battlefield game. Now, while we're talking about first-person shooters, let's dive into everyone's favorite Call of Duty. They did a few different things this week, a couple different interviews, things along those lines, but the first of which is they are going after the creators of the Cronus. Now, if you don't know, most Call of Duty hackers hack on PC, but not all of them do. There's this little thing called the Cronus, which can plug into a PlayStation, plug into an Xbox, and you can put scripts on it, and therefore allowing you to use things like aimbot, things along those lines on consoles. Well, Call of Duty has announced that they are going directly after that company with a cease and desist, which is absolutely wild. So probably one of the only company that is involved with cheaters on consoles may now be gone altogether, leaving it so that the safest place to play Call of Duty is indeed going to be console, and then you can also turn crossplay off now. So yeah, cheaters should be, after this is all said and done, pretty much gone on consoles. But of course, there's going to be other companies that pop up. Maybe Cronus creates a subsidiary, things along those lines. But this is a big move for console hacking. Now, while we're talking about hackers for Call of Duty, one of the other things that happened that was really odd this week. So we got an update that updated the meta of weapons, and they also said in that update that there was a problem in ranked play where players were getting disconnected like they were previously, but they said that this had nothing to do with hackers. This was something wrong with their servers, which people were already complaining about after the Season 3 Reloaded update, because the servers have been all messy since then as well. So they just kind of left it as it is and said, hey, you're just going to be disconnecting sometimes. Well, after that, once this update came out, SR was no longer tracking in ranked mode at all. So they literally straight up came out and disabled that game mode as a whole. It is back live now, but it was a very strange thing to happen where the update completely broke ranked play altogether. Yet they said they really didn't do anything to the mode. It was very strange. Speaking of which, player numbers. Now, this is something very interesting that came out this week. It's something by a company called The Game Business, and they have a lot of insider sources in regards to Call of Duty numbers, and they popped up some numbers. First of all, Black Ops 6 had the biggest Call of Duty launch ever with 33.7 million players. This is up from Modern Warfare 2, which had a player count of 31.4 million active players the month of launch. So up over 2 million players. But the drop off was even bigger because they also provided player numbers as of March in the following years. So first of all, in March of Modern Warfare 2, we had 22.4 million players. In March of Modern Warfare 3, we had 20.8 million players left. And this year with Black Ops 6, we had 20.6 million players left. Now I'm guessing that went up after the release of Verdansk and things like that. But at the same time, we're about on that same level as Modern Warfare 3, which is wild because that game was considered a pretty big failure because of the $70 DLC and things like that. However, with recent reports, players are saying the best multiplayer in recent Call of Duty games has been Modern Warfare 3 from various different surveys and things like that. So yeah, the player drop off was very large this year, and that's, I think, one of the reasons why we've seen the narrative with Black Ops 6 is because we started on such a big high and then just players fell off quicker than we have ever seen before in a Call of Duty game. Now, while we're talking about player numbers, Call of Duty, and specifically Xbox, there was a leak that came out this week, and that leak is their new console. This is a console that is supposed to be slated for 2026 next year, which is going to be an Xbox handheld. Now, so this was released or leaked as something known as Project Canaan, which is the code name, but it looks as though Asus is going to be working alongside Microsoft to release this thing, which is kind of weird because it's not going to be like a first-party Xbox. It's going to be through Asus, which is odd, but the reason for this existing is all Game Pass. Xbox wants to have a handheld console where you can have Steam running first party as well as Xbox Game Pass running first party and be able to play all your games on that, which honestly I think is a pretty good idea because as of right now on Steam Deck you can run Game Pass, but you have to jump through a few hoops. If you just had this console, the Xbox handheld, and you could have Steam and Xbox just loaded directly on there, ready to play everything, this is where they're trying to dive for. This is what their whole Play Anywhere market is going on. And speaking of their Play Anywhere market, one of the things that they released last week is the idea that there's going to be $80 games coming this fall from Xbox. They were like basically just letting us know this is going to be happening, just like Nintendo let us know that this is happening. However, this week they announced a game called Gears of War Reloaded. Yes, they are trying to steal this show's name, but the interesting thing about Gears of War Reloaded is that it is not going to be $80. This one is going to be $40 at launch, coming August 26, 2025. And they're basically just taking the original Gears of War and cranking it up to 11, making it so that it can run at 4K 120 FPS. On top of that, it is going to be coming out on PlayStation 5. No, you did not hear me wrong. Gears of War on PlayStation, which means when Gears of War E-Day eventually comes out, it is going to be on PS5, which is insanity, but amazing for all gamers. Again, going with that play anywhere vibe. It's going to be day one on Game Pass, and on top of that, if you already own Gears of War Ultimate Edition, it is an absolute free upgrade. I think this is one of the most consumer-friendly things we have seen Xbox do. And on top of that, they're announcing that it's going to have cross progression and cross-play, but you don't have to have an Xbox account like you did for PlayStation with something like Helldivers. But if you want to have cross progression and cross-play on, then you do. So you don't have to have an Xbox account to play it, but you do have to have the cross progression and cross-play work, which kind of makes sense because I don't know how they would make that work otherwise. Now, while we're talking about reveals, the next one we have is this.
Come in.
Bravery is not common in this world, and so loyalty, honor, obedience, they set the man apart from the rest. You took care of Messina, but this matter is not yet resolved. Will you help me bring it to a close? Of course, Tanto easy.
So this is Mafia: The Old Country. This game is coming out on August 8th this summer, and it looks pretty interesting. But what's even more interesting is this is a Take-Two game. Same people who are releasing GTA 6. On top of that, they also had information coming out this week about Borderlands 4, which means every single Take-Two game coming out within the next year had information coming out this week, which is kind of wild. But what I found most interesting about this game is they announced the price tag on it. That price tag is only $50. Yet another game coming in under the traditional game prices, which is kind of making sense because based off of rumors and leaks, this is said to be a shorter linear experience that is there to tell a good story, hence the lower price. But it lends to the question, what if, and I mean what if, GTA 6 doesn't release at $80, $90, $100? If you don't remember, before Nintendo raised their prices, before Xbox said our first party games are going to be $80, the rumor was the first game to do it was going to be GTA 6, making it okay for the rest of the industry to do it. However, with the announcement that Take-Two's next game is only going to be $50, what if GTA 6 doesn't come out at $80? What if it comes out at $60? What if it is lower than all of these other games coming out? Nintendo, Xbox are going to look so dumb. Now, I don't know if they would do that because that's essentially 10% of the price of the game, actually a little bit more, and that would be a lot of lost money for them, but it would be interesting for the game industry, especially when they want as many people playing when GTA Online comes out, which is their real bread and butter when it comes to money making. But it'll be interesting. With Mafia at $50, it'll be interesting to see what they do moving forward. And then finally, this week, we have this coming out.
The makers are still not responding. Defenses about to be breached.
Targets identified.
So Doom: The Dark Ages is off to a pretty hot start, sitting at about 86% on OpenCritic. 96% of critics, though, recommending it. People did get their hands on the game early. I, unfortunately, did not, but we can actually play it early because they are doing what they've done with a lot of other similar Xbox games, where it is coming out day one on Game Pass, but you can pay a little bit of money to get access to it early. So, for example, I'm in the New York time zone, as you're seeing there on the global release times chart. I can play at 8 p.m. on the 12th, even though the release date isn't until the 15th. if I pay for the early release time. So yeah, it's a little bit weird. You can play as soon as Monday technically. But yeah, based off of the trailer, based off of everything that we're hearing from reviews and stuff, it strips down. Basically what the Dark Ages does is it strips down the mobility focus of Doom Eternal, but replaces it with this kind of like more weighty vibe. You're using a shield, that type of thing, which is going to be different than any way that Doom has done their game before. Based off of what we're seeing, it works, and I will definitely be playing this week. Now, one thing I can say is I have definitely been wrong before. This was a week where I was definitely wrong again. I thought this week was going to be a slower week as we're waiting for Summer Game Fest to amp up on June 6th to June 8th, which that is going to be an insane week. And there's one thing that I will say, Slick and I have been talking, and we are trying to decide whether or not this should be the only show we do on this channel, and which ways you would like to see other content on this channel. Would you like to see breaking news as it happens, kind of in that minute reporting on it in a more journalistic style? Would you like to see reviews come up on this channel, or something like where we take one of the stories from the weekly reload and take a deeper dive into that, diving into more information, something that might take a little bit more time? I don't know, let me know. We've been talking about it, and I feel like coming up to Summer Game Fest, it would be a really good time to kind of dive into that kind of thing as the reveals really start to amp themselves up. So if you have a interest in more TWR, let me know. Hit the like button, let me know what you're thinking about that down in the comments. As always, thank you for the support. I'm gonna go rest this voice, and Slick, you're an absolute legend for grinding this thing out today. I really appreciate you, brother. But as always, that has been the weekly reload. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, peace.